breaking news as we are coming on the air. We are just learning that former President Trump will be allowed back on Facebook and Instagram for the first time in 2 years since the attack on the Capitol. Ahead, what we are just this minute literally hearing from Meta about it, about why now, about the new guardrails they say Mr. Trump will have, and what it means for his push to try to win back the White House. Plus, 1 in 6 of us under a severe winter weather advisory right now. Hundreds of flights delayed. Thousands of people don't have power. We'll take you live to New Hampshire, where the storm is hitting right now. We're also learning more about the tough conversations the FBI is having with parents of kids who died after overdosing on fentanyl bought on Snapchat. Plus, exclusive details into us at NBC News about what a Virginia teacher told her colleagues before being shot by a 6-year-old student. Why a potential new lawsuit says this shooting was preventable and the school may be to blame. And for Justin Bieber fans who want him to hold on to his music, the pop icon says, sorry, it actually is too late. Why he's selling his songs for a whole lot of money and what it means for the music industry writ large a little bit later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we're starting with that breaking news, and we mean it, right? Literally, it is happening in the last maybe 60 seconds or so. We found out that Meta will let former President Trump back on Facebook and back on Instagram after his 2-year suspension. Remember, they'd kicked him off the day after the January 6th insurrection, the attack on the Capitol. His last post was 3 p.m., January 6th, asking for rioters to remain peaceful. And in a statement NBC News just got within the last few seconds, a top Meta official, the president of global affairs, says the company thinks the serious risks to public safety since that Capitol attack has, I'm quoting here, sufficiently receded, citing the assessments of experts and how the 2022 midterms played out. Look at that last part, though. There's a key sentence in there. Nick Clegg says Meta has some new guardrails in place. New guardrails. What does that mean? What does that look like? Meta says that if Mr. Trump post something that like denies an election or a QAnon conspiracy theory, they will limit his reach. They could prevent people from resharing that post. They could also cut him off from advertising tools so people could look but couldn't spread it. If he does anything more, right, in the words of Meta or in the eyes of Meta, something that could incite violence, he could be suspended again, 1 month to 2 years. Here's the thing. Meta is not the first platform to let the former president back online. Twitter actually did it a couple of months ago. But Mr. Trump has decided not to tweet, at least not yet, although he is laying the groundwork for that return, telling Fox News just within the last week that Facebook, in his words, needs us more than we need them, and that his team had tried to set up a meeting with CEO Mark Zuckerberg because, after all, he's running again in 2024. Garrett Hake is joining us now. Garrett, explain the Meta rationale here.
Well, Hallie, the meta rationale here is that what occurred to get Mr. Trump suspended, at first indefinitely and then with a 2-year ban, was the kind of thing that needed to be reassessed over time. The 2-year portion is up. Meta says their oversight board has been looking into this. They say they did not talk to Mr. Trump about it, but the conclusion that they came to is this. Part of the statement from Nick Clegg, where he writes, democracy is messy and people should be able to make their voices heard. We believe it is both necessary and possible to draw a line between content that is harmful and should be removed and content that, however distasteful and inaccurate, is part of the rough and tumble of life in a free society. Yeah, Hallie, this is a long statement, and Clegg really goes through the arguments here and makes it quite clear that they know they're not going to satisfy everybody. There are sort of pro-Trump folks and others who believe there's a First Amendment right, that political speech should be allowed almost without any exception, who won't like even the guardrails they put in place. And then there are those who believe Mr. Trump is still, and perhaps always would be, a threat either to democracy kind of writ large or specifically to, incentivize some violent act who aren't going to be happy about the decision to put him back on at all. But it's clear the guardrails you've laid out, and then I think in this statement more broadly, that the desire is to have him back in on almost a probationary basis to see if he can follow the rules that they have laid out publicly for him to rejoin the online community that they control.
I want to go back to this idea that risk has sufficiently receded. And I think a question mark about that, because as you know, Garrett, as we've been reporting on here just this month, we saw a self-proclaimed Donald Trump supporter and election denier arrested for plotting to shoot at the homes of Democratic officials. At the same time, Meta has faced some political pressure to make this move, to let Mr. Trump back on. I am told by Nick Clegg, in an interview we'll see later on this network, that in fact there was no meeting between Meta and Team Trump. Talk us through that.
Well, look, the Trump team has made it clear they do think Mr. Trump should be reinstated on these platforms. But on the question of whether the risk has subsided, I think there's two ways to look at it. I mean, on the one hand, there's no longer a mob outside the building where I'm reporting live. And that was the case when Mr. Trump was posting about the events of January 6th, basically in real time on his social media platforms. But the idea that he's not engaged in conspiracy theories is going to be quickly proven false if you follow him on Truth Social, his current social media platform. That's basically all he talks about. And so those guardrails and the idea of inherent risk here are going to be tested very quickly, I suspect, if Mr. Trump decides to pick back up his keyboard and start banging out Facebook posts.
It's not just about the posts, Garrett. Fundraising. A big part of why this is important to the Trump campaign is about money and about targeted ads.
Yeah, look, I think that's the biggest reason Donald Trump needs to be back on Facebook. There is no more effective tool for online political fundraising in this country than targeted ads on Facebook. His supporters are there. They can be reached. And in the months since his campaign has launched, we know that they have not hit the kind of goals they set for themselves for small dollar online fundraising. Getting at those folks on Facebook is arguably significantly more effective, or at least a different pathway than trying to hit them on email or on text message. Go where the people are. Trump can now do that.
Garrett Haig live for us there on Capitol Hill to start us off tonight. Garrett, thank you. Tune in tonight, later on here on this network, for my one-on-one interview with the head of global affairs for Meta, Nick Clegg. That'll be on Top Story with Tom Yamas tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern. However you are streaming this now, you can stream that then. Let's talk about what else is making news tonight, including this big storm making its way through a good chunk of the U.S. It's making its way east. Thunderstorms, a lot of wind, snow after what we reported on this show 24 hours ago, some damaging tornadoes around Houston. Right now, 31 million of us are under winter weather advisories from Indiana all the way up to Maine. It's already snowing in parts of Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, New England. People are getting ready for not just a dusting, but multiple inches of snow. And we've seen the impact this is having at airports. Hundreds of flights are already canceled, more than 600 actually. Thousands of others are delayed. You've got emergency crews out in Texas still cleaning up from the damage the storm left in that area, with a tornado knocking out power. Look at this, leaving debris and trees, flipping cars, roofs all messed up. We've got 120,000 people tonight in Texas, Arkansas, and Missouri who still do not have their power back on. Gabe Gutierrez is live for us in Concord, New Hampshire, where it is already, seeing some flurries. It's probably going to get worse. A lot of the country is going to be affected, Gabe.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. And yes, just within the past few minutes, we've gotten another one of these bands, and we have started to see these flurries. Now, most of the snow behind me actually was from another snowstorm just several days ago, Sunday into Monday. But this area is expecting several more inches of snow tonight. And Hallie, this is something that some parts of New England, or really the Northeast, some major cities like New York, Washington, Philadelphia, they've barely had any snow throughout this entire winter, and that's raised a lot of eyebrows. Even Boston, although it has gotten some snow, according to the National Weather Service, Boston has gotten about a foot less than it normally does. So later tonight, this snow that we're seeing right now is expected to turn into rain in many parts of the Northeast. This is certainly going to make for a very messy evening commute here, Hallie.
It's the risk of snow where you are. In Texas, it was the risk of isolated tornadoes, as Bill Cairns explained to us on this show 24 hours ago. They had something like a dozen reports of tornadoes in that state. And we're looking at some of the cleanup. It's a mess.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Hallie. This is some very destructive tornadoes in and around Houston, Baytown, Texas, Pasadena, Texas. Authorities are looking at the damage today, and we're also seeing that this has been an especially active January when it comes to tornado reports across the country. About 157 tornado reports across 16 states just this month, Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez live for us there in Concord. Gabe, thank you very much for being there on the ground for us. Stay warm. Big news from the White House, where President Biden is today officially announcing that the U.S. will send 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine. Not long after Germany said they'd do the same with these key Leopard tanks. This is a big deal. It is significant, and it comes after some drama with Germany about whether sending these tanks would even happen at all. But the president saying it's more important to have a united front against Russia. Watch.
Putin expected Europe and the United States to weaken our resolve. He expected our support for Ukraine to crumble with time. He was wrong. He was wrong.
The U.S. will also give the training and the supplies needed to actually run these tanks. And that matters because a big reason why there was so much back and forth about sending them to Ukraine at all is because they're hard to use. So why did these officials in this country change their minds? Senior administration officials say they're looking ahead at the possibility of a Russian offensive, particularly in the Donbass region. Keir Simmons is joining us now. And Keir, there has been some discussion. I think it's been described as a potential game changer in this Russian invasion of Ukraine. Yeah. It is a reversal for the Biden administration in very fast fashion, by the way.
Well, that's right, Hallie. Look, I think it is a game changer, and I think there's been some confusion today. So let's try and cut through that. Some political leaders haven't really been being completely straightforward in what they've been saying. They're politicians, right? So that's perhaps to be expected. Here's why there's been confusion. What's happened is the US has announced that it will send Abrams tanks to Ukraine. That's going to take some time. But really, that was opening the door to the Germans being able to announce that they would send their own Leopard 2 tanks. That won't take quite so much time. Now, listen, Hallie, the Germans have been telling me through last week that they just wouldn't send their tanks unless America agreed to send its tanks. But it's more than that, because there are a lot of German tanks in a lot of other countries around Europe. We have a map. You can see the numbers. They're quite extraordinary. Just for example, on that map, you can see that neighboring Poland, neighboring Ukraine, has 250 of these Leopard 2 tanks. Now, what Germany has also done by saying that it can send its tanks, it's agreed for other countries to be able to send tanks. There are questions, Hallie. How many tanks will be able to be sent? And will it be months until they are sent? And really, this is a delayed decision. But I think you can see from that map, it does open up the possibility that large numbers of these German Leopard 2 tanks could go to Ukraine over time. I think there are two things about this. One is enabling the Ukrainians to defend themselves from what we expect will be a spring offensive by the Russians, well, obviously in the spring. And the other is, and I think that's where there's been some confusion, I think over time you're likely to see more of these tanks arrive in Ukraine, allowing the Ukrainians to push forward on an offensive and push Russia, the hope is, into negotiations.
You're making a super important point on the timing of it, Keir, because I've been talking with experts today who suggest that as it relates to the Abrams tanks that the U.S. is sending, you're looking at potentially months, right? John Kirby, the national security official at the White House, said as much, right? It's going to be many months. But the reason why the Abrams were important, because of what you've laid out, lets these other nations provide the Leopards, not to get into it, but which could be, as you say, more helpful. Russia sees this as a provocation. Russia sees a lot as a provocation, right? But you're hearing from Moscow today, and I'm paraphrasing here, that these tanks, they say, will burn like everything else, basically. I mean, this is, to them, an escalation.
Yeah, that's been the fear, that this would escalate, that the Russians would make new moves as a result of, frankly, fearing these new tanks arriving. Just one point. With the nuclear threats that Russia has been making, the Germans believe that they have persuaded China to put pressure on Russia not to make those nuclear threats. So it's not simple for President Putin. He could lose the support of China, of Saudi Arabia, of South Africa, if he makes more of those nuclear threats, or even looks like he's going to do it. So clearly the West believes it can send these tanks and change the game in Ukraine without those nuclear threats.
Keir Simmons, thank you very much for that analysis and that reporting, as always. Appreciate it. We've got some more breaking news into us in just the last few minutes. The arraignment for the suspect in the Half Moon Bay shooting in California, it's getting pushed back to mid-February, not long after the suspect was officially charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree attempted murder. We're learning just now the names of 6 of the 7 victims of the shooting. I want to show you them. It's them on your screen. They're between the ages of 43 and 74. Our team spoke with the sister-in-law of Marciano Martinez Jimenez, who said he was always a helper, a great friend, and a good person. It's all happening as Vice President Kamala Harris is on her way to the state, a little further south to Monterey Park, for a vigil to honor the lives cut short, the 11 victims of that shooting on Lunar New Year. I'm going to get right to Nyala Charles, who is outside the courthouse in Redwood City, California. And in just the last few minutes, we're learning the suspect in the Half Moon Bay shooting did not enter a plea. He was visibly shaking in court. Explain to us what we're hearing now from the DA and where this goes next.
Right, that defendant, 66-year-old Chung Lee Zhao, was, like you said, was visibly shaking in court and also had his hands over his face. Today in court, he was appointed 2 private defenders who asked for extra time to review the details of this case, and that's why it's getting pushed, Hallie. They also mentioned in that hearing that he's a Chinese national, and for that reason, and of course because of the horrible nature of these alleged crimes, will be held without bail. Hallie?
Niall Charles, live for us there outside the courthouse in Northern California. Appreciate it. The U.S. attorney heading up the investigation into the death of 29-year-old Tyre Nichols is promising to be thorough and leaving it to state and local leaders to decide when they will release that officer body cam video that we've heard about that family members say is extraordinarily disturbing. The Department of Justice has already opened a federal civil rights investigation into this case. You'll remember this one. These 5 officers involved in the traffic stop were fired almost right away. They were fired last week after a separate investigation found they violated policies of the department. Police say Nichols was pulled over earlier this month for reckless driving and then ran away from officers, and that there was a confrontation. He was taken to the hospital in critical condition and died 3 days later. Early findings in an autopsy commissioned by the family and described by their lawyers showed Nichols suffered extensive bleeding and was beaten severely before he died. Joining us now is Antonia Hilton. And Antonia, the pace of this investigation, we mentioned it, it has moved very quickly. These 5 officers were fired almost right away. There's already this civil investigation announced. We're already seeing the U.S. attorney on the record giving a public statement about this. The timeline feels significant here as so many people are looking to the release of this video, bracing for it, I think, in some ways, because from what we have heard from family members and others who have seen it, it's horrific.
That's right. And the same thing is being heard by all of the residents, community members who I've been speaking to today here. And, you know, the mood is interesting because while people are bracing for what they expect to be a horrific video, you know, we heard the attorney, Benjamin Crump, describe it as something akin to the Rodney King beating video. And people expect to be horrified by what they may soon see. There's also a feeling that things are a bit different right now because they are grateful. I spoke to several residents, including actually one police officer here in Memphis just a little while ago, who said that they were grateful that the department took immediate action, that these officers were fired. They were not put on administrative leave. They were not able to continue working while, you know, people waited to find out more. They very quickly were fired. And in fact, even 2 fire department members were also relieved of their duties and are now under investigation as well. And so there's this feeling that city leaders took immediate action, which is not something that Black residents typically say that they feel happens. What they often say that departments drag their feet. They are begging and pleading to be heard, that they're fighting to get a shred of evidence or an explanation about what happened. That's not exactly how this community feels, but they do expect to have more questions, more demands after they do see this video eventually. But right now they feel like so far, with all of the state, local, and federal agencies that are now involved in this, that at minimum, this initial positive step has been taken, Hallie.
Any timeline on when we may see that video, Antonia, or when we might see next steps here?
So I actually just had a conversation with State Senator Ramesh Akbari, who is a local, spends a lot of time here still in Memphis. And what they described was an expectation that sometime in the next week or 2 weeks, but she believed more likely within the next week, we're going to hear about the charges and see the video at the same time. The conversation among many leaders here is that that's the appropriate way for this to happen, and that it'll both give the community clarity on what the next steps are, as they also give them more information, more of the actual report about what transpired on January 7th. Hallie.
Antonia Hilton, thank you very much for that report. Glad you're there for us in Memphis. Appreciate it. The jury is set, and the murder trial of Alec Murdaugh has now begun formally. Remember, he's accused of killing his wife and son 18 months ago. And in the last hour, not even, prosecutors are laying out in detail how they believe he carried out this alleged crime. Watch.
Alec Murdaugh took a 12-shade shotgun and shot him in the shoulder, in the chest and the shoulder, picked up that .300 Blackout rifle and opened fire on his wife, Maggie, just feet away near some sheds that used to be a hangar. Pow, pow.
You're about to see Murdaugh here as he arrived in court today. If convicted, he's facing the possibility of life in prison. He's pleaded not guilty. Katie Beck is watching all of it for us in Walterboro, South Carolina. So, Katie, we understand court has wrapped for the day. The jury ended up being seated, I think, a little faster than people expected, given how so many people in this community there in South Carolina know of Alec Murdaugh and the Murdaugh family. Talk us through more about what we heard from prosecutors and what we heard as they're sort of laying out the case that they are going to make over the course of this trial.
Well, Hallie, the folks here are calling this the crime of the century. There is such intrigue surrounding this trial, and as it kicked off, it did not disappoint. Lots of fireworks and explosive comments in the courtroom, lots of very detailed descriptions in these opening statements today. The prosecution stands by the fact that they have the forensic evidence to convict a guilty verdict on Alex Murdaugh, saying, you know, he killed his wife and son. He did it after a perfect storm of circumstances led him to this desperate point. They also say that there is some cell phone video, that's going to be a pivotal piece of evidence for the jury to consider, that actually places Murdaugh inside that dog kennel moments before the time of deaths. So they're saying Alec Murdaugh's alibi that he was never in that kennel until he discovered their bodies does not hold water, that this piece of cell phone video actually has his voice on it and has been identified by several witnesses and will be identified by the jury. The defense saying the total opposite, that they don't have the forensic evidence. There is no surveillance video. There is no murder weapon. There is no fingerprints, even pointing to the fact that when the police arrived, Alex Murdaugh did not have any blood on his clothing. Here's what the defense had to say in court.
And Alec was the loving father of Paul and the loving husband of Maggie. You're not going to hear a single witness say that their relationship, Maggie and Alex's relationship, were anything other than loving.
Now, at one point, Alex Murdaugh was actually brought to tears in the courtroom today. That's as his own defense attorney was describing the death of his son in sort of brutal detail. We did see him shed some tears there at the table. The point of the defense attorney was to say, what kind of father could do this? They're going to have to really explain to the jury what motive could have brought him to that point. And the fact that they say there's a video that moments earlier in the evening shows the two of them enjoying each other's company. So they sort of put out there that there's a contrasting video to perhaps the video that prosecutors are going to put forth as a hole in the alibi. Hallie?
Explain more about this Snapchat video here and how that plays into all of this, even though we haven't seen it.
Well, we assume the video they're referencing is the one from the kennel, which is, they say, the pivotal sort of part of this case. And this was sent from Paul Murdaugh to a friend as he's in this kennel, sort of describing a condition of one of the dogs that was being housed there, that you hear Alec Murdaugh's voice in the background. And that is going to be tough to explain, given the fact that Murdaugh has said over and over again he did not spend any time in that kennel that night until he came down, discovered their bodies, and then called 911. Certainly a big piece of evidence for sure.
Katie Beck. Katie, thanks for being on top of this one for us. There is, of course, enormous interest in this trial. I am sure we'll talk again in the days to come. Appreciate it. NBC News is today confirming the FBI is now interviewing parents of kids who died after overdosing on fentanyl in pills they bought over Snapchat, according to somebody directly familiar with this matter. The Department of Justice is neither confirming nor denying there's a criminal investigation here, but it comes just a week after Snapchat's parent company announced it was taking steps to try to stop drug dealing on that app. The Snapchat spokesperson tells NBC News, in part, they're doing everything they can to tackle this fentanyl epidemic, including shutting down accounts of suspected drug dealers, blocking search results if you go to look for any terms related to drugs, providing resources about the dangers of fentanyl as well. Joining us now is Ken Delaney, and part of the team that has this reporting for us at NBC. And Ken, an NBC News investigation, this is really a follow-up to that in many ways, found that Snapchat, found in the fall, was linked to the sale of these fentanyl-laced pills that killed teens and young adults in more than a dozen states. It is in some ways not surprising and in some ways heartbreaking that the FBI has to now get involved with this.
Yeah, I spoke today with attorney Matthew Bergman, who represents dozens of families whose children died of overdoses with fentanyl purchased through Snapchat. And he says they're not doing everything they can. He says this problem is unique to Snapchat because of the way it's designed. Take a listen to what else he had to say.
The disappearing message feature of Snapchat, the For My Eyes Only, and the geolocation is just it's just a boon to drug dealers. It allows them to ply their deadly trade with impunity.
And so what's interesting about his approach is that under Section 230, social media companies have been immune from liability claims because
and
they're
Snapchat
protected
would be protected under that.
as publishers. But what he's doing here is he's filing a product liability case. He's saying this is a harmful product. This disappearing message feature has no social utility. It's allowing children to hide stuff from their parents and police. And it's sort of untested in the courts. We'll see where it goes.
Anybody who knows anybody, like, I don't want to overstate it, but I feel like a lot of people who knows anybody under the age of 21, let's say even say 18, knows somebody who uses Snapchat, right? Like it's so popular for, like, call them what they are, kids, teens, right? But middle schoolers, high schoolers, et cetera. That's part of why this is such a big deal. And that's part of why, even though as the DOJ is neither confirming nor denying that there is an investigation, part of why it's so significant that we're finding out that the FBI is talking with these parents.
It is, because it's one thing for an enterprising plaintiff's lawyer to be bringing these cases. It's quite another for FBI agents to be sitting down with parents, as we know they are, whose children died, and they're looking into whether Snapchat contributed to these deaths.
Ken Delanian, great reporting. Thank you for bringing it to us here tonight. Coming up here on the show, the CDC releasing its first report on just how well those updated boosters work against the newest variant of COVID. We're looking at the numbers and what it means for vaccine strategy overall. Plus, why Netflix is defending conditions on the set of a controversial new show, one that you've probably watched. That's in our 5 things. You remember the story, the school in Virginia where a 6-year-old is accused of shooting his teacher earlier this month? We are now learning today, according to her attorney, that teacher's attorney, that people there were warned 3 times that student had a gun. The teacher, Abigail Zwerner's attorney, says that other teachers and even school employees warned administrators that this little boy may have had a gun in his pocket. They even said another kid saw the gun at recess, but school officials didn't do anything about it. A source is also telling NBC News that Zwerner texted a loved one about an hour before she was shot, saying that this boy was armed and that school officials were not doing anything about it. Her lawyers today announcing they'll file a lawsuit, saying that this whole thing could have been prevented.
Had the school administrators acted in the interest of their teachers and their students, Abby would not have sustained a gunshot wound to the chest, a bullet that remains dangerously inside her body.
Yamiche Alcindor is joining us now. She's been covering the story all day. Yamiche, tell us more about what we're learning about the day the shooting happened and, frankly, what we are hearing from school administrators as they are now being put squarely in the spotlight by this teacher and by her attorneys.
Well, this press conference by this lawyer for Abigail Zwerner was really remarkable and heartbreaking in some ways, because what she really described, based on her understanding of the situation, is a slow-moving, violent train wreck. So at 11:30, the teacher who ultimately ends up getting shot, she goes to the administrators and say, hey, this little boy is threatening to beat up other kids. I'm really worried about him. That's the first warning. Then come the gun warnings. Then you have at 12:30, a teacher says, hey, there's protocol here. I'm going to go ahead and search this kid, maybe look for this gun, because there's talk that he might have a gun. They don't find a gun. Then at 1 o'clock, another teacher comes out and says, well, actually a child at recess says that they're crying and fearful because this child showed them a gun and said, I will shoot you if you tell anyone that I have this gun. And still the lawyer says nothing was done. 4th time, a teacher says, well, let's just try to search this kid again. And the lawyer says, school administrator said, no, you can't search him, denied it, saying, actually, it's pretty close to school, the end of the school day. It's okay, let's just all move on with this. And then after that, this teacher gets shot. And it's remarkable. She still has a bullet lodged in her body, according to her lawyer. So it's a sad, sad case. The lawyer has said over and over again, the school failed to act. And of course, now the teacher is suing the school district.
They talked about, there's been some discussion about how she, is alive. She's recovering physically, but the psychological trauma is there. There's so much psychological trauma involved here. What is the school saying in its own defense here in the face of these allegations? What, if anything, are we hearing from the administration, or is it just that they have lawyered up and that's how this is going to be?
Now they're being very quiet. A few weeks ago, we heard from the superintendent, the current superintendent, who said that, yes, school officials were aware that there was a report of a gun and that they had been warned about this. But now I was emailing with school officials today, and they don't want to have any sort of comment when it comes to what they're saying about this attorney and the timeline that I just laid out for you. The school district is meeting today. The school board is meeting for a special meeting. On the agenda is to appoint a new superintendent and possibly do away with the superintendent that they have. That right now is on the agenda, so they haven't taken that action yet. But it shows you that this is a school district that is clearly trying to move past this and trying to really say we are going to take a little bit of accountability for this. We'll see, though. That lawyer says accountability will mean making sure that this teacher is whole, whatever that means for them. Also, it's really interesting when you talk about trauma. The students today, the school is still closed, but the students today were able to go back into the building to just get them familiar with the building, just to sort of reintroduce it to them when school starts on Monday. So it tells you that they're just trying to get these 6-year-olds, these elementary school students, to feel comfortable in a place where they should have felt safe.
Yeah, Yamiche Alcindor, thank you. We're going to stay on top of this story. Glad you're on it for us. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, police in Spain say they've arrested somebody who they think sent letter bombs to the country's prime minister and to the U.S. and Ukrainian embassies there. If this sounds familiar, it's because we've talked about it. These letter bombs were found in November and December. One worker at the Ukrainian embassy was hurt. We've now learned that the suspect is a 74-year-old retiree who police say was very active on social media. They say they're not ruling out the participation or the influence of other people. Number 2, Pope Francis criticizing anti-gay laws in a new interview, calling them unjust. He told the Associated Press, I'm quoting here, that being homosexual is not a crime. The Pope says the Catholic Church can and should do more to put an end to laws that criminalize same-sex relationships. Number 3, Hulu and Adult Swim both say they're cutting ties with the co-creator and co-star of Rick and Morty, Justin Roiland. The show will continue, and Hulu says the shows that he was involved with on its service will also keep going on without him. Roiland has been charged with domestic violence. He's pleaded not guilty. Number 4, Netflix defending on-set conditions of its upcoming Squid Game series story, reality game story, after reports of freezing temperatures on set. A Netflix spokesperson is telling NBC that the company cares deeply about the health and safety of cast and crew, and says any claims of serious injury are not true. According to The Sun, some contestants actually went to go find some medical help because it was so cold, like reported lows of 30 degrees. Number 5, if you were totally intrigued by the story of that now infamous fake heiress, Anna Sorokin, stay tuned, because she is apparently getting a reality series. She's that convicted con artist who went by the name Anna Delvey. She's under house arrest in New York City right now, but the production company behind this new reality show says it's going to feature her invite-only dinner parties at her home. Because, again, she is on house arrest, can't go out on that front. The Centers for Disease Control today saying that updated COVID boosters actually cut your risk of infection from the latest variant by nearly half. They say the latest booster from Pfizer and Moderna is 48% effective against what they call symptomatic infection. That just means like you getting sick and then feeling sick for people under the age of 49. A little lower, you see the numbers on screen here for people who are younger than that. Tomorrow, the FDA has a meeting to look at older than that. The FDA has a meeting to look at the country's overall vaccine strategy tomorrow. They're going to look at what doses should be offered, what schedule they should offer those doses on. They're going to consider a plan to give Americans a single-dose COVID vaccine every fall, a la the flu shot. Dr. John Torres is joining us now. So, Dr. John, the FDA wants to simplify things, right? They want to make it easier for people. We don't have to do this booster and that update and this and that. Is that going to help get more people vaccinated?
And Hallie, that's the hope here. And we're going to find out tomorrow when they have the discussion, because what they want to do is, like you said, they want to simplify it. They want to say, you know, not only is it going to be one shot that you have to get every year, but also that one shot, it's not going to be confusing between the old vaccines that are still there, the new booster shots that have been upgraded to the new variant. And it's not going to be the kind of thing where you're going to have to necessarily catch up if you didn't get vaccinated before. They're saying, let's just go with one shot, kind of like the flu shot, and just go straight from here. In addition, today the CDC came out with that data you're talking about. And like you mentioned there, a little less than 50% effective at preventing symptomatic infection, meaning infections where you actually feel something. You get the sniffles, a cold, all the way up to being hospitalized. But on top of that, they said, and this is important, it basically had a twofold decrease in deaths in people who were vaccinated and had gotten the booster shot over people who just got vaccinated but didn't get the booster shot. And it was dramatically decreasing deaths in people who never got vaccinated if you end up getting this booster shot. So again, they're trying to just double approach here of saying how effective it is, and we're going to make it a little bit easier because they know not that many people are getting shots now. They want to make sure that once we start getting the shots, which could be on a yearly basis, that more people are going to line up to get that, because that's what we need moving forward, Hallie.
Dr. John Torres, thank you very much. Appreciate it. When we come back, this next story is for everybody who is watching this show at work right now. No judgment. We love to see it. We'll have more on this new report finding a lot of folks are not really engaged with their jobs. Who it seems to be affecting most after a break. So if you're one of those quiet quitters that people have been talking about, going into your job, you know, just to do the job, do the bare minimum, you are not alone. You probably already know you're not alone if you talk to anybody at your office who probably is doing the same thing. But we actually have data now, not just your anecdotes, to back that up, to prove it. This new Gallup report out today finds the number of engaged workers has dropped from 36% at the beginning of the pandemic to 32% in 2022. The biggest decline, people who are younger and people who are still working in the office but who could do their jobs from home. Why? Well, some of these employees say there's no clear expectations from their bosses about their job. They might feel disconnected from the company's mission. They might not feel cared for. Joining me now is Emily Aketa. It is not super shocking that younger workers, by the way, younger people under 35, are actually like doing kind of this quiet quitting or decreased engagement, to put it sort of formally like Gallup does here. This is something that we've been talking about for a long time, and I think some of it has to do with, not to sound like an old person, like the younger generation, and I would include like us in that, right? The ideas of what work is and how jobs function in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things going into this. But I think if you've spent any time on social media, TikTok, Instagram, it's really no secret the younger generation is experiencing this level of discontent at the workplace. You mentioned quiet quitting. We've seen hashtags like work your wage catching fire. And what this new survey does, it gives us some insight into why younger generations are feeling this way, where we're seeing some of the declines. They listed out some of those reasonings: feeling cared about, a decline in, having someone who encourages their development, opportunities to learn and grow, their opinions counting, having a best friend at work, something, Hallie, hard to do if you're working remotely.
Let's look at employee engagement. I don't know. I think you can have a best friend if you work remotely, but whatever. I mean, maybe that's just me. I feel like I work remote from all my best friends at 30 Rock, and it's still okay, but still. Let's look at employee engagement, because it started going up again after the recession in 2008, right? Then COVID hit. Now we see disengagement rates that are going up. We all knew that COVID and the pandemic obviously threw everybody's lives into a tailspin, right? Talk to us about some of these trends, what they mean, and where this goes.
You know, you think about it, the pandemic, it really rocked our day-to-day lives and those boundaries, if we had any pre-pandemic along with it. And so that practice of the day-to-day, going into the office, logging onto your computer, and then end of the day, logging off, leaving that there, leaving the office, well, that all went away. Suddenly, everyone has their workplace at their fingertips 24/7. And so I spoke with different workers in different fields about how the pandemic has impacted them. A lot of them telling me, you know, they found themselves checking their email on their phone in the middle of a workout, a kickboxing class, or maybe someone was getting an assignment at 5 p.m. on a Friday. Just felt like kind of this never-ending work cycle, and that brewed a lot of burnout and lack of happiness, Hallie.
Emily Aketa. Emily, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Glad to see you. No judgment on quiet quitting, right? If people feel like they need to just do the bare minimum, just do what you got to do. I don't know. Is that a controversial opinion? Emily, I won't make you respond to that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Coming up, we're going to Florida, where the fight over an AP class is leading to protests, and now tonight a lawsuit. Plus an update on that missing hiker on Mount Baldy in California we told you about. How rescuers found him alive days after he disappeared. That's later on in the local. Earlier in the show, we told you about how people across the Midwest and Northeast are under winter weather advisories. And if you're like, okay, Hal, so it's an advisory, what about a winter weather watch or a storm warning or whatever? The National Weather Service uses these words to label bad winter weather. So we figured we'd break it down for you, lay out what this whole thing actually means. Watch.
Holiday plans.
The words you hear in weather reports all winter long.
A stunning 105 million people under some kind of winter weather alert.
We still have winter storm warnings in effect across the Great Lakes. And
more than 200 million people are under some kind of weather warning or advisory.
Winter weather advisory, winter storm watch, winter storm warning. Kind of word salad if you don't know the difference, but there is a difference. Take winter weather advisory. That means the weather is going to be inconvenient, but probably not as extreme. You'll hear an advisory for any amount of snow and or freezing rain. Next up, we have a winter storm watch. That's more serious. Think heavy snow or ice or sleet. A watch comes out a day or two before an area might get hit with weather that could be dangerous to people or property. And it's announced on the early side to give folks time to prepare before the storm hits. Then there's the most intense language, winter storm warning. That means dangerous, maybe even deadly weather is about to hit or is hitting already. We're talking a lot of snow, a lot of ice, or a combination of the two. So when you hear a warning, be careful and listen to what officials are telling you. Also important to note that these warnings are issued from each area's specific office, so the criteria for what an alert should be can vary depending on where you live. If you don't know, now you know. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Western Bureau, a 75-year-old hiker who went missing on Mount Baldy in California Sunday has been found alive. No word on his condition, but he was alert and talking to these crews when they found him. One of them called his rescue a miracle because of the conditions on the mountain. Super cold, freezing, wind so intense that helicopters couldn't even be used during part of the search. Officials are still looking for actor Julian Sands, who disappeared on the same mountain more than a week and a half ago. From our Midwest Bureau, police in Nebraska are investigating after they say some explosives were found after a traffic stop early today. Officials say they pulled over a car because it didn't have plates. That's when police saw drugs and some suspicious-looking devices inside. The driver was arrested. Police then went to the home of the person who owned the car and say they found more explosives. That apartment building got evacuated. Obviously, the stuff was taken out. Nobody got hurt. From our Southern Bureau, a Texas hospital is celebrating tonight because they've successfully separated conjoined twins for the first time this week. Twin girls Amy Lynn and Jamie Lynn were born in October. They shared a liver. It took a team of, I'm not kidding, a team of 27 people to do this surgery that lasted for 11 hours. Doctors say they're really optimistic about these babies' recovery. So many people are thinking and praying for Amy Lynn and Jamie Lynn tonight. Still to come, Justin Bieber is selling his music catalog. And listen, it's a big deal, why it's a no-brainer for him and the people buying it. Next. Out in Tallahassee today, you had lawmakers, students, teachers, leaders in the black community coming out to protest a decision by the Republican governor down there, Ron DeSantis, to block a new AP class on African-American studies. The governor does not want that taught in high schools in Florida. Civil rights lawyer Ben Crump taking it a step further today, warning Governor DeSantis that Crump will sue if the state doesn't negotiate with the College Board to make AP African-American studies happen in Florida schools. Listen.
Everybody who is here in America, you have a right to have your culture, your history respected and taught to the children of America.
Remember, this is the first time a state has refused to certify an AP class like this, and it comes on the heels of some other culture war type issues that Governor DeSantis has taken on. In a statement to NBC News, the state's education department says the AP African American Studies class in its current form would be, in their view, a vehicle for a political agenda. Zinkley Asamoah joins us now. And Zinkley, you know, Ben Crump, who is a name I think that's familiar to a lot of people who know the civil rights advocacy community, says this could be an historic lawsuit. Explain that.
Yeah, Hallie, it can be. The key word here is it could be. So he announced his intent to sue, and that is if the governor does not proceed with the ban. We heard a lot of energy today here out of Tallahassee. I heard you play that soundbite at the very top. And essentially, he's saying there is nothing wrong with this policy. It's important to note that here in Florida, African-American history is required. And we've heard from the governor's office saying, I am proud to teach African-American history. However, he has some clear objections. We also heard lawmakers as well as Crump, as well as AP students talk about how this is not an isolated incident, right? We've seen DeSantis ban courses around critical race theory and sexual orientation and identity. So this is just one of a slew of policies that we've seen from this governor, and it's one that has a lot of students specifically upset. Hallie.
What about, we alluded to this idea that the Florida State Department of Education feels like there is some sort of political agenda with this AP African American Studies class. The College Board says it's working on this new framework for that class. We don't understand. I don't think we know for sure if that is a result of Florida rejecting it, but what's the timeline for when the College Board might do something that gives us some clarity here?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. So I actually visited one of these pilot courses back in October. Right now, it's happening in around 60 schools around the nation. And this is a pilot. So students cannot get college credit right now. They cannot get AP credit. But what they can do is provide feedback on how it's going. And so the College Board always intended to get this feedback. And based on my conversations with them, it seems they were very aware of the context of critical race theory. Did anyone expect this ban? There's no way to really know. But now we have heard from the governor's office and from the College Board that they will be resubmitting the curriculum February 1st. That day, we'll hear from the governor, we hope, and then that will sort of determine whether or not Ben Crump and team decide to actually file this lawsuit or whether or not AP African American Studies gets taught right here in Florida. Hallie.
Zinkley Essamwald live for us there in Tallahassee. Glad to have you there. Thanks, Zinkley. As of today, Justin Bieber is part of a growing club of singers and artists who've decided they're going to sell the rights to their entire music catalog. It's been reported that Bieber's catalog sold for something like $200 million. We don't know some of the ins and outs of it, but it includes like huge hits that I know you know, Peaches, Sorry, etc. Who's buying it? A UK-based music investment firm, with that company's CEO saying that the impact of Justin Bieber on global culture over the last 14 years has truly been remarkable. And listen, Bieber's not the only one doing this. Bob Dylan, Future, Bruce Springsteen are just some of the artists who have sold their catalogs for hundreds of millions of dollars in the last couple of years. Julia Borston joins us now. And while, I think there are folks on, frankly, my team who can't resist a little Bieber chat, Julia, like this is more about the music industry writ large. Why are artists doing this? What do they get from it? Is it the money? Is there something more?
They get a big lump sum. And that's the thing, is the music industry is pretty complicated. There are different types of rights. And yes, streaming has generated a huge amount of value for artists like Justin Bieber and all the other names you mentioned. But the revenues come in sort of piecemeal. What Justin Bieber gets with this is a big lump sum. And then he also doesn't manage those rights anymore. So the company takes over management of those rights. Going forward, he will continue to earn new revenue from his new songs. But I think the key thing is that now he gets that big upfront lump sum payment. And remember, he delayed that big tour he was going to do last year. And a lot of artists who took this payment did so because they weren't touring as much during the pandemic.
When an artist does this, they lose control over the songs that they've sold, right? Like, in other words, if you don't want your song to be like in an annoying commercial, you don't get to say that it couldn't be done. You know what I mean? Like, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah, exactly. They're giving up control of everything that they're selling as part of this deal. So the good news is they don't have to worry about the day-to-day management, but they do have to trust the company not to mismanage their assets, to make sure that they're putting their songs in only the right kinds of commercials that won't devalue them or licensing them to movies that will be helpful. So there is a big element of trust in the company to make sure that these massive assets are in the right hands.
Can they trust those companies? And I don't expect you to be able to answer that question because that is subjective, but it's the idea that some of these companies are fairly new. If you look at like Hypnosis, for example,
yes.
Are there risks that some of these artists are taking by giving this massive amount of, frankly, like intellectual property, their creation, over to another organization?
Exactly. Well, there is risk, but they are getting Justin Bieber is getting $200 million. So Hypnosis is a relatively young company compared to some of the music labels. But what Hypnosis has said in response to some of that questioning is say, hey, we might be better equipped than some of the music labels with their legacy relationships to really think strategically about what to do with these assets. And the fact that Hypnosis is so focused on just managing these types of music rights, and that gives them an advantage. But it is a leap of faith, and it is unusual for someone someone as young as Justin Bieber to be doing this, though we have seen some other deals of relatively young artists, but he is definitely very young for this type of deal. Usually people do it towards the end of their career.
That's a great point, Julia Borston. Let me tell you, there are some leaps of faith that I sure would take for $200 million. That is for another segment. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. That does it for us for this hour. Thanks for being with us, as always. We'll have more for you here tomorrow, same time, same place. More coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.